Hello, friends. Here is this week's WTF micro newsletter for the week of June 9th. Thank you so much to everyone who showed up for WTF's new 11 a.m. Eastern Time last Friday. It was so wonderful to chat with you all about the upcoming tour, as well as the conversation that we had about the reconciliation bill. And so there were a couple of requests that came out of that meeting. Folks asked me for some audio for how to explain to folks the connection between the reconciliation bill and small farmers, land stewards, and their communities of support. So this is a long-ish micro newsletter with a couple of different slides, graphics, and audio clips that you can use for having conversations with your family members, friends, communities, and elected representatives related to the reconciliation bill. The first thing to know is that appropriation bills and tax bills determine how our tax dollars make their way back to our communities. These are not government handouts. These are what our democratic process have created to make sure that the taxes that get deducted from our paychecks, all of the money that gets deducted, that goes and makes its way up to the federal government to determine where those resources are spent, which federal agencies get those investments, which federal programs get those investments, and then which state programs also get disbursements from those. That's why it's really important and also very cumbersome and confusing. And there's just like so much going on every single time there's an appropriations bill. What makes this one big, beautiful bill so much more of a nightmare for folks is that it's kind of a Frankenstein of not just appropriations bills, but also the tax bill. And so you might have seen that the president put out a budget, but it's really important to remember that the president does not have the power of the purse under the Constitution. Only Congress can make decisions about how our tax dollars are spent in our nation. The National Sustainable Ag Coalition has some really great resources on their website. And one of the things that they point out is that this reconciliation bill in particular, because we've been waiting on a farm bill for a really long time, this is going to heavily show us what will happen with a future farm bill. So it's really, really important that every single one of us who support small farmers, who are small farmers, land stewards, and the nonprofits and organizations that support those two groups of folk, that we are actively letting elected officials know that we're paying attention to the cuts, the additions, any changes in programs that would be addressed under the Farm Bill. So it doesn't matter if you don't know every single thing about the entire appropriations bill, if you don't understand all of the moving parts, and just know that you're not alone in that. A lot of what has happened with this bill happened under the cover of night in backroom, closed door conversations. And so that's not a transparent democratic process, but you have a right to let them know exactly how you want those dollars to be spent. What I do is I try to take some action every single day, and it can be really small. It can just be going to one of these advocacy organizations like the National Family Farm Coalition or the National Young Farmers Coalition, the Heal Food Alliance, the National Sustainable Ag Coalition, and the many others that support the needs of small farmers and their communities, and look at what action alerts they're putting out. Look at what, template letters or talking points they're putting out. And if there are some that resonate with you, use those. Otherwise, you can just call your electeds or email them every single day. Set aside 10 minutes every single day or like 30 minutes every Friday and just let them know how you feel. You can send an email, you can call, you can write a letter. But it's really, really important that you're letting them know that you're the expert on what the needs are in your community. You live in your community, and it doesn't matter if you voted for them or not, they're accountable to your community. So definitely look at some of these resources that are here in this micro newsletter. I highlighted a quote from the National Young Farmers Coalition where they talk about the harmful cuts to the nutrition programs, negative impact not just on families, but also it has a negative impact on the revenue stream for farmers. So that's a really important point to make to folks who were voting in this past presidential election just for change. The cost of groceries going up, the cost of living, the cost of things in our society being less and less affordable. As the Institute for Policy Studies says, this bill will cut programs that help working families meet their basic needs, including the nutrition programs, but all of the programs that directly benefit our communities, including things like we're seeing right now, the increased militarization of ICE and the ways in which our communities are having to basically finance our own defense and protection of our friends and neighbors. That funding to increase the criminalization and the punishment of our immigrant neighbors is directly removing resources from our communities to get our working families' basic needs met. Another thing that the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities highlights is that this bill really does cut payments for working families, everyday Americans, just to create and make permanent tax breaks for the wealthiest households. So what's big and beautiful are the tax breaks that are being afforded to billionaires. And it's really important to remind folks that any benefits that appear to be made, like, not having to pay taxes on tips or anything that would kind of look like a win for our communities, if you look at the dates, those things end in the next couple of years before the next election cycle. But the benefits to billionaires are permanent. So we're basically the reverse Robin Hood, robbing from the poor to give to the ultra wealthy. Groceries are already challenging in their affordability for American families, and this bill only makes that worse. So those are some of the ways that we can have those conversations with our elected officials. There are other implications related to programs that would create green jobs and create economies that make utilities more affordable, leaning into our renewable energy opportunities that have been created by the Inflation Reduction Act. There are a lot of things that are more intricate and complicated, and so there are just countless resources, and I've tried to highlight some of the most reliable and relevant to our communities. But just know that any issue that matters to you, any issue that matters to your community, any issue that matters to our small farmers, land stewards, and the communities that support them are impacted by this big, beautiful bill. And it's important that we let our elected officials know that we do not want to see our tax dollars making things harder for everyday working families and much, much easier for a very long time for billionaires and the wealthiest households. I thought it was a sensitive subject to add this funding slide to the micro newsletter, but I did want to let folks know that the USDA has opened up until June 27th the application for the local food promotion program, the regional food system partnerships, and the farmers market promotion program. I know that folks are hesitant to apply for federal government programs right now, but I just want to remind us that in addition to letting our elected officials know how important it is for them to fund programs that directly improve outcomes for our communities and opportunities for small farmers and land stewards, it's important that we submit these applications just for the demand to be something that can be tracked. It's really important for us to be able to show that we need resilient local food systems. COVID really taught us that we cannot rely on our current food system. It is really important that these programs are oversubscribed, that we just continue to make that demand. And as I've said many times before, we're all going to have to kind of tag each other in and out of this marathon that we're on, because some folks are just exhausted of submitting grant applications, of submitting these, different requests for funding. But if we do not continue to make those requests, regardless of our program application being funded or not, if we do not continue to show that those programs matter to our communities, then that's one of the easiest ways for those programs to be eliminated from future appropriations bills. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to jump in and dive deeper into anything appropriations bill, the WTF tour. I'll actually be on the road when you all are checking this out this week. I'm going to be in New Mexico at the SAFSF forum, and I'm really looking forward to being in person with folks, and that still means that I will be holding WTF this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you weren't there last week and if you haven't yet registered, click the link below, and I'm really looking forward to spending some time with you all.